welcome to today's video on the green gold challenge. Our art friend Dena tollefson challenged us to produce a piece of artwork with the colour that we're looking at today. Green gold is produced by lots of companies, and they all have their own slight connotation in pigment and how they produce it, so trying to pin it down is difficult. This image you're seeing now is my interpretation of green gold, so let's try and use that, and also just to counterbalance that, I'm going to put forest green in it, which is a sennelier colour. A common pigment used to produce this paint is PY129, and I'll try and tell you what that is. It's osmophane copper complex, if you're interested in finding out about that. I'm painting on Hahnemuhle Expressions 100% cotton cold pressed paper today, and what I'm going to do first of all, and what I'm going to do throughout the painting, is try to explain about negative painting, where you work around the object that you're painting rather than the actual painting of the object itself. I'm just using one brush today. It's the Jackson's Icon quill brush. I'm putting a secondary amount while it's still wet of paint that's darker in. And I'm just going around some of the edges here with water and softening up some of the edges. I'm going to do several layers of this to build it up. As you can see here, I'm putting some more green gold in. Now the car has dark areas obviously underneath it, so I'm starting to establish some areas on the outside of the car that may potentially be dark, and I'm trying to do things in a directional way as well. I'm trying to get you to look at things directionally. For example, the back wall, that's upright. Continuing on with creating that shadow area underneath, it's really good to establish things like that, and then we will really see how that works later to make a solid looking vehicle. And again, you have to be patient with this because it takes some layering to get to the stage where it's dark enough to look like an actual shadow, because these greens are quite transparent. And we continue putting areas of dark to contrast that green gold that we've got now. The background as well will have a dark area, because the vehicle itself will have quite a few light areas, and it's really important to get darks against lights when you're doing a painting to create crisp contrasts and defined areas. And that's one of the things you do when you do negative painting. The one good thing about this paper is that you can keep working it. It takes a lot of hammer, so that's a real bonus. You can now see that I'm starting to put segments of the vehicle in detailed areas, but I'm not painting it as a whole. I'm painting outer edges that will help define the rest of the actual vehicle itself. Something that I'm keen on actually doing with this painting is making sure that there's like a regular flow of colours into one another, that they don't feel separated, the individual pieces, that they all kind of watery flow into each other. So I'm doing some fairly delicate light areas first with this, and that will help with in the future when I go to actually make everything all flow. And I'm going to re-emphasize the shadow underneath the vehicle, because as you can see just then, it had dried and it had gone quite light, but you have to do that with watercolours occasionally. Now we've got the flow of colour in the vehicle, it's really down to attaching everything and getting various bits of detailed work in it, and making sure that that flow continues on throughout the painting, that things don't look separated. And as well with the individual pieces of brush strokes, that you get some soft edges and you get some hard edges in it, which will add to the realism of the painting. So getting various areas in that have slightly different tones, and this is all using that green gold plus the forest green, which is the sennelier colour. We keep working the dark areas and putting that up against the light areas, and that will eventually help carve out a realistic looking vehicle. And we're not that far off from the end of the painting here, so it really is just carving out the final detailed sections of the painting. I'm softening the edge of the shadow there with just water, and then adding little grid details and things like that that cars have. But I'm fairly happy with what I've got there. It's a fairly fast and very loose painting. A dab more green gold just because I want to, and that's your painting done. So here is our green gold painting. I obviously used some of the forest green, and these paints are sennelier, but for a loose and fairly fast painting, I think I've enjoyed doing this, and it's worked out reasonably well, and I like how the colours are tending to bleed into one another, which is really nice. That's what I wanted it to do. So I did some what they call negative painting around the car, and just filled certain areas in. I didn't try to paint each individual item as a block thing. It's about filling the negatives to create the object. So there is my green gold challenge complete. I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have done painting it, and we'll see you in our next video.